Okay. Then again, hello everyone. This is today a kind of new style of webinar because we have 5 panelists here in the round. And the idea was to kind of exchange our experiences onto the EMS annual meeting. The EMS 2025 is coming up. And I hope you all received the letter of schedule or those that signed up for the EMS. So maybe you already start thinking about how to prepare for it in whatever your role you're in. And today on the panel, we have 5 different people that had very different roles in last year's annual meeting. And yeah, we would just like to exchange our experiences and also to give you some insights of what happens actually behind the scenes of such a conference, how much time it takes to organize it, how many people are involved, and how people from, let's say different backgrounds have different experiences for such a conference. And then I start introducing our panel. The first panelist is Marie Dutriot-Bouget. She worked for the last 14 years as a scientist at EUMETSAT, and before she worked as a researcher at the UK Met Office, working on climate feedbacks. And at EMS 2024, she was a chair in the Poster Award Committee. Hi, Marie. Our second speaker or panelist is Steffi Libera. She is a physical oceanographer and did her PhD in Tasmania. And now she is a postdoc in Belgium. And 2024 was her first time at EMS, and she joined receiving the Young Scientists Conference Award. Then, as well on the panel, we have Eric Paino. He is a meteorologist, and he recently defended his PhD thesis at the University of Barcelona, where also the EMS 2024 was taking place. And there he not only joined the conference, but he also worked as a conference assistant. So again, a very different role. Our fourth panelist is Mark Prohm. He is a geographer and the head of the climatology department at the Catalonian Meteorological Service. And they served as the local hosts at EMS 2024. What that means and what kind of tasks are related to it, we will hear from him in a minute. Hi, Mark. And last but not least, we have Shira Rave-Rubin. She's an associate professor at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. Right now, she told me she is in Switzerland, and she participated already several times at the EMS annual meeting as a session convener. So she convened the session and she chaired the session. I'm very glad that you're all here, and I would like to start with a bit broader introduction round where every one of you can just explain briefly what you're doing and what your role was at the last annual meeting. And I would like to start with Steffi.
Thank you, Julia. So as you just mentioned, it was my first time attending EMS in Barcelona. It was a very beautiful experience. Again, also you mentioned, I was very fortunate to receive the Young Scientist Conference Award, which was covering my travel and my registration. And also because of the award, I was giving an award presentation. It was an oral presentation based on my work that I do at UC Louvain, Belgium, about mesoscale eddies and sea ice interaction.
Great, then I'd like to pass the ball to Shira.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Julia, for hosting this. So I'm a professor at the Weizmann Institute. I lead a group of scientists, of students and scientists that study atmospheric dynamics. And at EMS in the last years, I was very fortunate to be a part of a convener team that arranged the sessions or the sessions on atmospheric and climate dynamics, predictability, and extremes. It was a very nice experience that I can describe more about today.
Great, we're very excited to hear about this. Then next, I would like to ask Mark to shortly introduce yourself.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to this nice webinar. My role in the EMS Congress last year was being a bridge between the local organizers that were the Meteorological Service of Catalonia, but also the Catalan Society of Meteorology, and the other part that is all the logistic part of the Congress, especially the Copernicus meeting, that is the institution that works with all the local hosts and the venues to settle all the material. And this was our main role, and obviously also organizing site events and excursions that were interesting for the people attending the meeting.
Then I'd like to ask Marie to introduce yourself and your role at EMS.
Hi, so I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So I am Marie Dutrier-Boucher. I'm working at EUMETSAT, which is an international organization, and we are responsible for operating some meteorological satellites, and we monitor weather and climate from our satellites. And we had a successful launch yesterday of the first geostationary sonder, MTGS. So that was, you can have a look on YouTube, you will see the launch. It's in orbit now. I mean, it will be in orbit and will bring us a lot of data. And in this conference, basically, I am chairing the poster committee. So I am in charge of sort of evaluating one of the, I mean, what we could call the best poster of the things, and I will talk more about it later.
And then to close this introduction session, Eric, please introduce yourself and your role at EMS.
Well, thanks a lot to the organizer for the invitation, and thanks to everyone joining today. I would like to say that for me, as Julia says, the EMS was quite special because it was the last conference I attended in personally during my PhD. It was a great chance to share the final results of my doctoral research, and the fact that it took place in Barcelona made even more meaningful since that where I live. A few months later, I successfully defended my PhD. Now still working in the meteorology group at the University of Barcelona. And also, on top of that, EMS was extra special because I had the opportunity to work as a conference assistant, which gave me the completely new perspective on how scientific events run behind the scenes. Basically, my role, along with 6 other colleagues, was to provide technical and logistical support in the lecture rooms and at the event reception. Most of us were master or PhD students like me. In summary, it was not only my first time working as a conference assistant, but also my first time giving an oral presentation at EMS. So it was a fantastic experience.
Sounds really interesting. And since this is a very special kind of job that people that just attend the conference typically don't really notice, Eric, I would right away like to ask you, what were your specific tasks? Or maybe can you explain how a typical day as a conference assistant looks like?
Well, as I mentioned before, our main job was to make sure everything runs smoothly in the lecture rooms during the oral sessions. I'm not sure when it started, but at the last EMS 2024, all oral sessions were fully hybrid. That means that while sessions were happening live in lecture rooms, there was also Zoom meeting running for a speaker and attendees joining from home or for other parts. Based on that, our main tasks include running all presentation for the lecture room's laptop, sharing the presentation on Zoom for online attendance and projecting it on the screen for those on site, helping on-site speaker with microphone, or for example, with the pointer, which gave us quite a few problems last time. Assisting online speaker in showing their video to the on-site audience, starting and stopping the timer for presentation, and in general, helping to the conveners, especially at the end of each talk during the question and discussion time. We worked from Monday to Friday, usually from 8 a.m., I think, until 18, which lunch breaks between, sometimes shorter days and sometimes longer. I would like to say that, well, we also had a short training session the day before the conference starts, lasting about 3 or 4 hours, where we learn how to handle the Zoom meeting and have time to practice a little. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And it sounded to me that there was a close collaboration with the conveners as well, because you basically did the technical support and the time
Exactly.
stopping for them. So my next question would be to Shira. How do you first of all prepare to convene a session? And then on-site, how do you chair a session? What is important for that?
Yeah, so this was actually really a lot of fun every year that I did it. So already a few months before the actual conference, you all know that the abstract deadline, we were in the lucky position of reading all these abstracts and becoming excited about all the things that are about to come. So we basically received all the abstracts that were submitted to our session. We were a team of 5, typically. We read them all and we decide if they're in the scope of our session, or in some cases, they might belong better in a different session. And we can suggest some kind of transfer, but most of them are in the scope. We make sure that they're high quality, and we decide which ones to accept to the EMS and which ones to not. And this is, I guess, quite rare. I think the quality is very high. And then we think about the whole session. We are allocated a certain amount of time for oral presentations and for poster presentations according to the number of submissions. I think we are a relatively large session on atmospheric dynamics. And then we make some order in this according to some topics. So we have an order to topical sessions, typically 4 or 5 sessions in this whole kind of large session on atmospheric dynamics. And then the program is ready, which is already now happened. And once the program is ready and we are actually preparing to chair an individual session, then what I typically do just before the conference is that I read again the abstracts that belong to that session that I am responsible for, so that I will get the vibe of the session, the topic, the context, and I will prepare to introduce the speakers and to manage the Q&A session. I typically also think about a question that I can ask if the audience is not immediately active, so that it all flows also in time. And then starts the excellent collaboration with the local assistants and organizers, because from a technical side, I also have to keep the time of the presentations and the Q&A slot, and see that everything is kind of flowing well with the exchange of speakers and all of that. And until now, it was really, really smooth, thanks to the local assistant. I think this is it. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Sounds really exciting. Then speaking about talks or giving talks, Steffi had her first experience at EMS last year, and she gave a talk. And while receiving this Young Scientist Conference Award, I would like to ask you, Steffi, what was your experience as it was your first annual meeting, and especially what was your most intriguing experiences? Because, you know, sometimes you have an experience that you did not think of before.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I gave my talk on the first day, which was quite a relief, as many of you know. And the session was very well received, and there was enough of people. And I also met a lot of young students from the University of Barcelona that came up to me and asked me further questions after the session was over. So that was a good experience to know people actually listened. I was actually very positively inspired at EMS. First of all, because it's not as huge as EGU, and you can actually meet a lot of people, and there's good settings where you can have a good interaction. And the main thing that I was interested was the focus that EMS 2024 had as a service to society. So there was so many sessions that was engagement with society, and a lot of discussions and interactive aspects on how to apply the climate science that we do to society. And I really found that quite inspiring, especially as a young researcher. Sometimes you question, okay, you do all this work, where does this actually go to in the end? And I can really think about one of the moments that I found like it was like my wow moment at EMS. And that was at the award lecture. So I don't know exactly which award. I think it was the Lifetime Achievement Award. And so Professor Susan Grimond, I think she's from UK, and she was receiving this award, and she gave a talk about preventative urban planning in a warming climate. And it was quite eye-opening, and you get to learn a lot of information on how the buildings are not really structured for the climate that we live in now. And right after her talk, there was Anna Kalitz from Barcelona who works on adaptation of urban areas to climate risk. And so it's more like a social, it's not really a researcher, but in fact, people that actually do the action. And they were really inspired by the talk and was willing to take on that information. So to see how the science is like taken up immediately, that was very inspiring for me. So that gave me a very positive outlook on conferences in general, and perhaps somewhat the way forward to do. So yeah.
Wow, that already brings me to another question. But first of all, I would like to finish this first round of questions and continue with Marie. So you served as a chair in the poster selection committee. How do you evaluate the posters? I imagine there are so many, and it might be very overwhelming seeing all of these and then have to do the choice. How do you do that?
Yes, that's true. There is a lot of posters, and I'm really enjoying doing that job. So I'm serving as a chair committee for already at least probably almost 10 years now. And so the first things I would like to say is having a poster at a conference is really a great opportunity, because then you can communicate your science. It allows me to meet your peers, and so there is a vast variety of posters, and we have to select the one, let's say. And basically, to do this, we are really focusing on two aspects. One is the communication, and the second is the scientific aspect. So both aspects are really essential, let's say, because the poster needs to present a strong science, but also have a nice way to invite basically engagement of people and understanding of what you are doing. So the first things about the communication, having a first look at the poster, you need to have a sort of intuitive and very clear structure. So that's the first impression is very important. You have more or less to be able to follow the storytelling from the background of the background and the objective to the method and the results. So you need to have something very well structured. And then you need some visual elements. So you need very clear graphic, very well designed little charts or diagram. You can even think about adding multimedia element. You can add a QR code which will link to some short video or interaction. So you want your poster to stand out. Same for the text. We are not looking for a lot of text explaining everything in details, but you want clear and concise text which will summarize it. So basically the goal is really to communicate basically your research quickly, clearly with somebody. And then you are there in front of your poster, you have opportunity to talk, you can write more. So then turning to the scientific aspects, once you have attracted the people stop in front of your poster, they think, wow, that's nice. And then they try to see what is inside indeed. So you need scientific quality, that's clear. So the objectives need to be clearly stated, the methodology should be described appropriately, more or less, and you need to say enough to be able to understand and to show why you are doing that. So you want to bring some evidence. You also want to maybe inform the user to the potential impact of your poster, basically how relevant is this research you are doing, either for the meteorology or for the climate community, and you want to explain how the finding should contribute basically to either operational forecast, climate adaptation, public awareness, whatever. So the good poster should really say why the research matters. And finally, you have something we call in our criteria innovativeness. So basically, we pay attention whether your approach is really original. Basically, is it in the method or the data set or how the problem is framed? Basically, it doesn't need to be necessarily super revolutionary, but a bit of novelty is a strong indicator that you are doing a nice research and so on. So even a very small innovative twist can make really a big difference. So basically, in summary, a great poster to me should really have visually clean, so clarity, easy to navigate, and a good science. And it's a bit of exercise. It's a lot of exercise to do before the conference, I think. And then once you are there, you can talk more in detail. You can explain, but first you need to have people to stop in front of your poster and that in a minute can grab what is your science about and how important it is. So that's more or less it.
Thanks, Marie. That were a lot of insights, and to me, it sounds like that whoever in the audience handed in a poster for EMS 2025, you should better start now already thinking about how you can catch the audience and make it the best poster on site. Now moving on to Mark, you are not only a researcher, but you also helped to organize the conference as a local host. And yeah, I would just like to know what you do in general, and specifically, what was the most challenging part in organizing such a conference?
Yeah, as you remember, the EMS conference last year was a success in terms of attendees. Almost 1,000 people attended the Congress. And this was good, obviously, but also demanded a lot of work, extra work, maybe, compared to other scientific meetings, for example. My role was ensuring, and not only me, but also the team that was involved in the Med Service, to ensure a good communication and coordination between all parties, especially the University of Barcelona that held the venue, and helping and facilitate several practical aspects for the organization. For example, from managing the arrival and storage of materials to solve on-site logistical needs, and helping how to locate the spaces. No, these logistical things that seems not important, but during the conference are really very important for all the logistics. And this was intense, obviously, but and from another side, I think was very nice to organize the excursions. That it was also important for the audience. And especially we arranged excursions to special sites with connection with meteorology. In our case, the Fabra Observatory, that's a historical observatory in the city, the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, or an underground water reservoir in the city. And this it was challenging because these sites are limited, and not all the people can access to the sites. So we had to strict capacity to manage these registrations in advance, and this may sometimes led to some disappointment for the attendees, but obviously the participation has to be limited to an audience, no? And obviously I think the most challenging was the organization of the Festa, the 25 years EMS Festa in a nice palace. But this year, to make things even interesting, that afternoon, on that day, the dinner the weather didn't help, and we had to change all our thoughts and to celebrate the celebration indoors, and this had to change very quickly. And fortunately, thanks to the professionalism and dedication of the entire team, we managed to adapt the site, and this was, I think, even more nice. The scenery doing some special events inside than outside. But for the local organizers, you have to keep in mind that things can happen. Weather can change, and even in Barcelona in September can you have to be adjusted to this kind of things.
Yeah, I can very vividly remember that. Speaking about spontaneous changes, I would have a follow-up question on that because probably there are also things you have to plan way in advance. So when does the actual preparation start, or how much in advance? When do you start the very first, let's say, meeting and talking about the conference?
Yeah, in our case, actually the meeting was expected to in 2020 during the pandemic, so it started several years ago. But for the context with the local people, especially at the university, we started 1 year in advance, more or less. But this time is more intense during the months that are closer to the event. And maybe I have to recommend to local organizers to work in advance, especially contacting those institutions that are in charge of the sites that want to be visited during the site events or discussions. And obviously this depends on the level of involvement that the local organizations can take on. In our case, we work between ACAM, the Meteorological Society, and the SMC was a key in distributing roles and responsibilities. And for example, in the case of the SMC, we wanted to play an important role to show how we work and how we are organized. So this depends in each case on the time that the local host can provide to the meeting, but at least 1 year.
Yeah, sounds like a lot, and but also sounds like you get a nice reward as soon as you have successfully finished or completed the conference. Okay, it's 4:30, and I would like to open up the discussion now also to the audience. If you have any question, any thing in mind, type it in the chat, and if it's addressed to one of our panelists specifically, please indicate that. And maybe while our audience is thinking about questions, I have a short follow-up question to you, Eric. Since you kind of had two roles at the last EMS as an assistant and as an attendee, what would you say? Could you still follow the talks? Was it still worth joining, or was it mostly exhausting?
Well, was a bit fun, but it was definitely a bit exhausting. We work long hours every day, yes, dealing with a lot of people, and there was some pressure to make sure everything went well and react quickly if any technical issues came up. I don't know if everyone attending the conference realizes, but many of us helping out are students who, while we know how to handle technical stuff, it's not actually our main job. And sometimes you have to deal with problems on like sound issues, video glitches, connection drops. Naturally, we had the option to request technical assistance from the conference organizers at any time. Still, people were always very patient with us, and overall things went quite well, I think. The good thing is that the schedule was flexible, and we'd coordinate among ourselves so we could try to cover sessions that each of us was interested in. In my case, for example, the topics in the session I worked in were often really interesting to me. So I managed to combine business with pleasure, so to speak. Several of us, as I tell you before, had our own oral presentation. In those cases, we were given time off during the session where we were presenting, and we just returned to our duty afterwards. It was honestly a great experience. The day felt less stressful as the week went on, of course. And despite the long hours, I think it was totally worth it. So I definitely encourage anyone who has the chance, especially PhD students of early careers research, to step forward and giving it a try. And another plus that I would like to say is of working as a conference assistant is that you get free registration for the Congress and the hours you work are paid. There might be additional benefits if you have to travel to attend, I think, but I'm not completely sure about those because in our case, we were all locals. But yes, it was great.
Thank you. Then I would like to address two questions that are in the chat. First of all, to Masio. Any specific details on, for example, how long an oral presentation takes and all the technical details, I would like to refer you to the conference webpage because I believe it's everything indicated there. And then there was a question of how many attendees there are usually at EMS. Mark already told us that Barcelona was record-breaking with 1,000, and usually it's more around 600. But so I believe this year it will be somewhere in between. And following up on that, I would like to ask Steffi, since you experienced EMS last year, but maybe also other conferences, would you or do you rather prefer small or big conferences? And also from the point of view of an early career scientist, would you rather advise people to start attending a small conference or start with a big one right away?
Thank you for that question. And this is a very interesting one because when you start off as a PhD student or something, I think we sometimes aim to go for the big conferences, like go for EGU, AGU, Ocean Sciences, or all that. But then, as many of our supervisors might say, oh my God, it's like there's so many people and it can be very overwhelming. And you may give a talk, and sometimes it's like you have to give a talk within a time, and it's so going in a fast pace. And many of us young scientists nowadays prefer to go for smaller conferences where you feel that you get much more out of it. For example, in EMS, I felt that this was one of the few conferences I attended in Europe, and I got to meet a lot of early career researchers in different parts of Europe, in similar fields, and I felt that was a lot more rewarding than say EGU, for example. So yes, I would highly recommend going for more focused conferences with not as many people, maybe.
Then I've seen another more technical question that I would again refer to see or check out the conference website, because I would like to also ask a follow-up question to you, Shira. As a convener, you listen a lot to talks, but of course, we have heard that there are also posters and poster prizes. So what would you suggest, maybe also for early career scientists, or generally, which kind of format would you suggest for whom? Or is there even such a general advice?
Thanks. This is a very good question, and I think there's no clear answer. So I think whatever you present, a poster or talk, it will be rewarding in different ways. And by the way, just remember that in some of the oral talks, there's also an introduction to the posters. So there are very short poster pitches. Some sessions choose to have it, and I think not all of them. So this is again, a combination. It means that even if you have a poster, you have a very short oral slot to advertise your poster. In any case, I mean, having said that, I think there's still a general kind of rule of thumb that I try to follow myself, which is when I have a research that I want to present, and it's still not totally crystallized in the sense of having a clear storyline for publication, then I'd rather prefer presenting it as a poster presentation when I have a better chance of getting more specific feedback from other scientists that will help me kind of crystallize my own research. And quite differently, when I already have a paper that is published and it's a full story kind of already out there, I think an oral presentation is a good opportunity to advertise the poster and present it as a full story. But still, I think having any of the presentation forms is rewarding. I personally really like poster presentations. I always enjoy it the most. But yeah, I think either way, you get different types of feedback and different types of exposure.
Then talking about posters, another question to you, Marie. How is the best poster selected in the end?
Okay, so the best poster selected is it's a little bit subjective sort of at the start, because we have, for example, last year we had over I think 130 posters altogether. So you can imagine split it into batch. So it's a bit complicated and time consuming to really go in details in all of them. So basically what we do is first we split the posters among the committee members. We are 5 committee members. And each of us look, I don't know, 1/5 of the total poster entering the competition. Then we select our 5 best posters based on the 2 criteria that I described, communication, scientific aspect. We mark each of the criteria, and then we rank, and then we meet together, the 5 committee members, and each of us has 3 to 5 best posters, and then we all together go to this 5, like at the end is 20, 30 posters, and we see all of them, each of the 5 members. And basically, we go on site. We try to have a chance to discuss with the poster presenter, because I think it's pretty good if there is something missing, or you can discuss, and the good point is you have specialists and non-specialists in the committee members. It's totally a bit of random at the beginning. And at the end, because we are 5, we always have 1 specialist. We can really prove that, okay, we select this one, but yes, indeed, it's really making a breakthrough in this science or whatever. And on top of that, we have a public voting system. So each of the people who attend the conference will be, and was for last year, able to vote. So you will have a sort of website where you could see little tiny description, photos of the poster, and you can choose between 1 or 2 or 3, we have not yet totally decided, best posters. And that public voting is also taken into account, basically, with the committee decided. And at the end, basically, we select one, and even if your poster is not selected, it's not a big deal. I mean, every poster to me is normally good, because people are already making effort now, and to prepare. You have to think about it. I think it's a bit more work than an oral presentation where you can have a few slides and, okay, you have to talk in front of the people, but so that's how we did, basically.
Thank you. And that also sounds like a very nice closing statement to our different insights on EMS 2024 and 2025 from all of you. A big thank you to the 5 of you for taking place in this panel and sharing your experiences. And to our audience, you're always invited if you have ideas on further topics, or you even want to join this EMS webinar group in the future, feel free to get in touch with us, drop us an email, or contact us otherwise. And we're happy to receive your feedback all the time. The next webinar will actually take place after the annual meeting on November 5th. It's also a Wednesday. And the title is Meteorological Career Paths Throughout Europe. So it will again be a panel discussion with different researchers at different stages of their careers that have also moved across Europe. And we're really excited to hear about their experiences in November. With that, again, another big thank you to the 5 of you and to all the audience. Have a great afternoon. Hopefully you get a cool drink or something, and goodbye.